In my life, I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs. I have good memories, and there are things I deeply regret. I carry burdens of my past. I carry a lot of guilt into my future. But we are human. We make mistakes, some bigger than others, but I reach my low. But it's only up from here. My name is SonTran, and this is my story. So starting in junior high, it was a little weird because I had just recently come from a different school. I was a new student, and there was a lot of new faces, and throughout like grade 1 to 6, I think I was at like 4 or 5 different schools because we moved around a lot, and I just went to a lot of different schools too. And so starting at the school, like I was seeing some familiar faces from the past years and a lot of new faces, and that scared me a lot. Grade 7, I think it was just normal. It was still living life like how it used to be at home. Like my home life used to be the same when I was in grade 7, but I remember this one day in May, it was near the end of May, I remember getting home, and that was, I can't even describe that feeling of just knowing something was gonna go bad or something was gonna go wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. But I got home, and that was the time where, another time where I got abused, whether it was mentally, physically, emotionally. It was all at once, all in a span of half an hour. That all happened, and it was scary. It was hard to process, since I was getting older and I started to learn myself, and I started to learn like the meaning of certain things, or like what was happening to me, and I started to learn those. And that was the last thing I remember for that year, and that just took over that whole year, and that's all I could think about now, looking back on my grade 7 year, like my first year of junior high. And the next day when I went to school, luckily there was a dance the following day, so this must for sure maybe even happened. So when I got abused, I think it was on a Tuesday, because I went to school on the Wednesday, and I was afraid to go home because I went to school, I was feeling fine. I wore a hoodie, I tried to hide everything. And then later I stayed at school to help one of my teachers like set up for the dance for the next day. And this was, so 3 o'clock, the bell rang and everybody goes home, and I was just anxious. I was nervous to go home after what happened the night before. And so I stayed and helped him, and then around like 4:30, he's like, he comes up to me and says, are you not going home? And I was like, no, it's fine, like I'll stay and help, I'll finish this. And he probably didn't think much of it, but around like 5:30, he came up to me again and said, you're still not going home? And I just looked at him, and I feel like the look on my face that I gave him, like, gave everything away, I feel like. Then I just looked at him, and I was just said, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm scared to go home. I was afraid to go home. And then a little after that, I was called into the office. There were social workers there, police officers there, and that's how my grade 7 year went, as far as I remember. And then I went home, and we were talking about it, and I was in my room, and the police officer came up and said, they've been arrested for assault and child abuse. And I just broke down. It was like, yeah, This is my fault again. This wouldn't have happened if I didn't say anything. Like, I shouldn't have said anything, and I overthought about it. I don't remember much, but the police officer called them into my room and asked them if they had anything to say to me, and they didn't say sorry, but they looked at me and said, this is your fault. And that beat me up a lot, and I for sure like knew in my mind like that was my fault. And so I had to go live with my other parent that was down in the south, and the school I was at currently at that time was allowing me to still go to that school, even though I was living on the opposite end of the city. Living down there was crazy. I was scared to bring those problems into that household and ruin whatever else was going on there. And I remember even going to school during my grade 8 year, I would wake up at 5:30 and catch the bus at 6:30, or catch the train and then transfer to 2 other buses to make it to school by 8. So I was really up at 5:30 and getting to school by 8 for classes to start at 8:15. And I would get home at 5:36. Like, it was a long day every day. And it was worse when I was even on sports teams, because when we had like morning practices, I had to get up way earlier for that. And it was like 3 or 4. Or evening practice, and then I would get home like later around 6, 7. And that was also the year in grade 8 where Rob Nash came to my school and gave his presentation. And looking back now, I should have paid more attention, because all those feelings I had, all those topics that he talked in his presentation, I had those feelings too. I just didn't know it yet. Because he came in November, and I remember 6 months later, I never thought it would be me. I never thought I would go through suicidal thoughts, having depression, self-harm, nothing like that. I never thought that would be me until it became me 6 months later. 6 months after his presentation, around April, May, I self-harmed for the first time. I was only 13 or 14 at that time, but really, I still couldn't believe that, here I am being 13, 14, and I thought this made me feel weak. And so I never spoke to anybody about it, and I just hid that from everyone. It's weird to think back now. I started questioning my worth a lot that summer too. And grade 9 came along right after that summer, and man, it was the worst year of my life, I think. It was going good. I will say that. It was going good until I ruined it. I ruined it for myself. I made some very unforgivable mistakes that year. To this day, I still have regrets. I still have nightmares about it. I still carry guilt. But I know that I made those mistakes. And so I am responsible for them. And I accept them. And for that, I'm sorry to whoever I mistreated, everyone I hurt, everyone I caused pain, anyone and everyone. I'm sorry. My whole grade 9 class and everyone around that, everyone that was older than me, everyone that was younger than me, because that's that's all they think of me now, as that person still. And it's hard to sometimes walk around and people be like, oh yeah, that's that guy that did this and this. And some days where I'll get to a point where I forget about those times, but then those moments, it just brings everything back, and it just hurts a lot. And for the longest time, that whole summer, near the end of grade 9, in June, July, and August, and I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. Having that thought in my mind that I screwed up that bad, I thought my life was over.
Deep inside you wanna die, I know that you're in pain. I'm still here to tell you I felt the same. The walls were talking, I'm still haunted, words still on the mirror. I know you can make it, cause I made it through this. I was told I'm not enough, couldn't make it any clearer. Still alive, breathing now, trying to make a difference here. The pain that you feel, I know it's hard to erase, but the war that you fight, your story will save someone.